A pilot tries to insult Cristiano Ronaldo on a first-class flight. What happens next will shock you everyone. Before we continue this story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this one, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another special story for you. The private terminal was a world of luxury, filled with the hum of quiet conversations and the clink of fine china. Cristiano Ronaldo walked through the sleek corridors, his presence commanding yet understated. Dressed in a tailored suit, he carried himself with the confidence of a man who had conquered the world. But today, he wasn't here to conquer, he was here to relax. A long flight awaited him, and he looked forward to the peace of first class. As he approached the boarding counter, the airline staff greeted him with practiced smiles. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Ronaldo. Your seat is ready." He nodded politely, his mind already drifting to the book he'd packed for the journey. Little did he know, this flight would be anything but peaceful. In the cockpit, Captain Mark Harris adjusted his cap, his reflection staring back at him in the glass. A veteran pilot with over 20 years of experience, Harris had seen it all, celebrities, politicians, and billionaires, but he had little patience for what he called overpaid athletes. When he heard Ronaldo was on his flight, he rolled his eyes. "Another spoiled millionaire," he muttered to his co-pilot, who chuckled nervously. As Ronaldo settled into his seat, Harris stepped out of the cockpit, his eyes scanning the cabin. They landed on Ronaldo, and a smirk crept across his face. He leaned toward a flight attendant. "These guys think they own the world just because they can kick a ball," he said, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. The attendant forced a smile, unsure how to respond. Ronaldo, oblivious for now, adjusted his headphones and opened his book. The engines roared to life, and the plane taxied toward the runway. But as the wheels left the ground, so did any chance of a quiet flight. Captain Harris had a plan, and it wasn't about smooth skies. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude, and the cabin settled into a calm rhythm. Cristiano Ronaldo leaned back in his seat, his book open but his mind wandering. He glanced out the window at the endless expanse of clouds, a rare moment of tranquility in his hectic life. But the peace was short-lived. Captain Harris's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We've reached our cruising altitude, and the weather looks perfect for a smooth journey. I hope you're all comfortable, especially those of you who are used to special treatment." The last phrase was delivered with a pointed tone, and a few passengers exchanged glances. Ronaldo's eyes flicked up from his book, his brow furrowing slightly. He wasn't sure if the comment was directed at him, but the subtle edge in the captain's voice was hard to ignore. A flight attendant, a young woman named Emily, approached Ronaldo's row. "Can I get you anything, Mr. Ronaldo?" she asked, her voice warm but tinged with nervousness. "Just water, thank you," he replied with a polite smile. As Emily walked away, Captain Harris emerged from the cockpit, his hands clasped behind his back. He strolled through the first-class cabin, his eyes lingering on Ronaldo. "Enjoying the flight, Mr. Ronaldo?" he asked, his tone dripping with faux politeness. Ronaldo looked up, his expression calm. "Yes, thank you." Harris smirked. "It must be nice flying first class all the time. Some of us actually have to work for a living." The comment hung in the air like a dark cloud. A few passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Ronaldo's jaw tightened, but he remained composed. "I work hard too," he said simply. Harris chuckled, a sound devoid of humor. "Sure you do." He turned on his heel and walked back to the cockpit, leaving a trail of tension in his wake. Ronaldo exhaled slowly, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrest. He wasn't one to engage in petty conflicts, but something about the captain's demeanor felt personal. Across the aisle, an elderly man in a crisp suit watched the exchange with a frown. He had seen enough in his years to recognize when someone was being targeted. The flight was far from over, and so was the battle of will. The hum of the engines filled the cabin, but the tension was palpable. Cristiano Ronaldo tried to focus on his book, but the captain's words lingered in his mind. He wasn't one to let negativity affect him, but the deliberate disrespect was hard to ignore. A few rows ahead, the elderly man in the crisp suit, James Carter, a retired judge, leaned over to his wife. "Oh, did you hear that?" he whispered. "The captain's got a chip on his shoulder." His wife nodded, her eyes darting toward Ronaldo. "A poor man. He doesn't deserve that." Meanwhile, Captain Harris was back in the cockpit, his co-pilot glancing at him uneasily. "Mark, don't you think you're pushing it a bit?" the co-pilot asked. Harris shrugged. "What? He's just another celebrity who thinks the world revolves around him. Someone's got to bring him down a peg. The co-pilot hesitated, but said nothing. He knew better than to argue with Harris when he was in one of his moods. Back in the cabin, Emily, the flight attendant, approached Ronaldo again. This time, she looked visibly uncomfortable. Mr. Ronaldo, I'm so sorry about everything, she said quietly. Ronaldo gave her a reassuring smile. It's not your fault. Don't worry. Emily nodded, but her eyes betrayed her concern. If you need anything, just let me know. As she walked away, the intercom crackled again. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a bit of turbulence ahead. Please fasten your seatbelts. And remember, no matter how much money you have, you can't control the weather. The jab was unmistakable. A murmur spread through the cabin, and several passengers glanced at Ronaldo. He clenched his fists, but kept his composure. James Carter, however, had had enough. This is ridiculous, Carter muttered, standing up. He walked over to Ronaldo's seat. Mind if I join you? Ronaldo gestured to the empty seat beside him. Not at all. Carter sat down, his expression serious. I don't know what his problem is, but you don't deserve this treatment. Ronaldo sighed. I'm used to it. Some people just don't like athletes. Carter shook his head. This isn't about you being an athlete. This is about him being a bully. Before Ronaldo could respond, the intercom clicked on again. By the way, folks, we'll be making an unscheduled landing due to a minor issue. Nothing to worry about. Just a precaution. The announcement sent a ripple of concern through the cabin. Ronaldo and Carter exchanged glances. Both knew this wasn't a coincidence. The storm was no longer just brewing, it was about to break. The cabin buzzed with murmurs as passengers processed the captain's announcement. An unscheduled landing. Cristiano Ronaldo's instincts told him this wasn't just a routine precaution. He glanced at James Carter, who was already shaking his head. This stinks, Carter said, under his breath. He's trying to make a point. Ronaldo nodded, his expression calm but his mind racing. He had faced challenges on and off the field, but this was different. This wasn't a game. It was a power play. Emily, the flight attendant, hurried down the aisle, her face pale. She stopped at Ronaldo's row. Mr. Ronaldo, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on, but this isn't normal procedure. It's okay, Ronaldo replied, his voice steady. Do you know where we're landing? Emily hesitated. A small airport about 30 minutes from here. It's not a major hub, so it's unusual. Carter leaned forward. Carter leaned forward. Carter leaned forward. But can't someone stop this? The captain can't just decide to land wherever he wants. Emily bit her lip. Technically, the captain has authority over the flight, but I'll see what I can do. As she walked away, Carter turned to Ronaldo. This guy's got a serious ego problem. He's using his position to mess with you. Ronaldo sighed. I don't want to cause trouble. Maybe if I just stay quiet, it'll blow over. Carter frowned. Sometimes staying quiet just lets bullies win. Before Ronaldo could respond, the intercom crackled again. Ladies and gentlemen, just a reminder to remain seated. We'll be landing shortly, and to those who think they're above the rules, remember, safety comes first. The jab was unmistakable. A passenger in the row behind Ronaldo muttered, "What's his problem?" Another replied, "He's got it out for Ronaldo. It's obvious." Ronaldo closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He had faced criticism, scrutiny, and even hostility throughout his career, but this felt personal. He wasn't just a passenger on this flight, he was a target. As the plane began its descent, Carter leaned closer. "Listen, I've got a plan. When we land, I'll make sure this doesn't go unnoticed. You don't have to fight this battle alone." Ronaldo opened his eyes and gave Carter a small smile. "Thank you, but I don't want to make things worse." Carter shook his head. Sometimes making things worse is the only way to make them better. The plane touched down smoothly, but the tension in the cabin was thicker than ever. As the seatbelt sign turned off, Captain Harris emerged from the cockpit, his face a mask of smug satisfaction. He walked straight to Ronaldo's row. "Mr. Ronaldo," he said, his tone dripping with false politeness, "I'll need you to disembark first." Security protocol, the cabin fell silent. Every eye was on Ronaldo, waiting to see how he would respond. The silence in the cabin was deafening. All eyes were fixed on Cristiano Ronaldo and Captain Harris, the tension so thick it felt like the air itself had turned to stone. Ronaldo remained seated, his expression calm but his eyes sharp. "Security protocol," Ronaldo repeated, his voice steady. "What exactly is the issue?" Harris crossed his arms, his smirk widening. "Just following procedure, Mr. Ronaldo. We take safety very seriously here." James Carter, sitting beside Ronaldo, couldn't hold back any longer. He stood up, his voice firm. his voice firm. This isn't about safety. This is about you trying to embarrass him. Harris's smirk faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. Sir, I suggest you sit down and let me do my job. Carter didn't budge. Your job is to fly the plane, not harass passengers. We all know what you're doing. A murmur of agreement rippled through the cabin. A woman in the front row spoke up. He's right. This is ridiculous. Harris's face reddened, but he kept his composure. Mr. Ronaldo, if you don't comply, I'll have no choice but to involve airport security. Ronaldo stood up slowly, his towering presence commanding the room. I'll comply, he said, his voice calm but firm. But let's be clear, this isn't about safety. This is about you. Harris's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He gestured toward the exit, and Ronaldo began to walk down the aisle. As he passed the other passengers, he noticed their expressions, some sympathetic, others outraged. A young boy in the third row whispered, "Good luck, Mr. Ronaldo." The words brought a small smile to Ronaldo's face. He nodded at the boy and continued toward the door. Carter followed close behind, his eyes locked on Harris. "This isn't over," he muttered as he passed the captain. Harris ignored him, his focus entirely on Ronaldo. As they stepped off the plane, a group of airport security officers approached. Harris gestured toward Ronaldo. "This passenger needs to be escorted for additional screening." One of the officers, a tall man with a no-nonsense demeanor, frowned. On what grounds? Harris hesitated. Suspicious behavior. The officer raised an eyebrow. Suspicious behavior. This is Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo stepped forward. "I'm happy to cooperate," he said, his tone calm but assertive. "But I'd like to know exactly what the issue is." The officer glanced at Harris, then back at Ronaldo. "Let's sort this out inside." As they walked toward the terminal, Carter pulled out his phone. I'm calling the airline." "This is unacceptable." Ronaldo placed a hand on Carter's arm. Thank you, but let's handle this the right way." Carter nodded, but his eyes were blazing. Sometimes the right way is to fight back. Inside the terminal, the security officers led Ronaldo to a private room. Harris followed, his smug expression returning. But as the door closed behind them, Ronaldo turned to face the captain. "You think this will make you feel powerful?" Ronaldo asked, his voice quiet but intense. "It won't. True power comes from respect, not fear. Harris opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. For the first time, his confidence wavered. The private room was small and sterile, with fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow over the tense faces inside. Cristiano Ronaldo stood tall, his calm demeanor contrasting sharply with Captain Harris's growing unease. The security officers exchanged glances, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. One of the officers, a woman with a stern expression, turned to Harris. "Captain, can you explain why Mr. Ronaldo needs additional screening?" Harris cleared his throat, his confidence wavering. "As I said, it's a security precaution. We can't be too careful these days." Ronaldo crossed his arms, his gaze steady. "If this is about security, then I'm happy to cooperate. But if it's personal, let's address that now." The room fell silent. The officers looked at Harris, waiting for a response. He shifted uncomfortably, his earlier bravado crumbling under the weight of scrutiny. James Carter, who had followed them into the room, stepped forward. "Let me make this simple," he said, his voice firm. "This isn't about security. This is about the captain's ego." "We're from up the captain's ego. He's been targeting Mr. Ronaldo since the flight began." Harris's face turned red. "That's not true, isn't it?" Carter shot back. "We all heard your comments over the intercom. We all saw how you treated him. This isn't protocol. It's harassment." The female officer turned to Ronaldo. "Is this accurate, Mr. Ronaldo?" Ronaldo nodded. "I don't want to cause trouble, but yes, the captain has been making unnecessary remarks and singling me out since we boarded." The officers exchanged looks, their expressions hardening. The tall officer who had questioned Harris earlier stepped forward. "Captain, we'll need to report this to the airline. This is a serious matter." Harris's eyes widened. "You can't be serious. I'm just doing my job." "Your job is to ensure the safety and comfort of all passengers," the officer replied, "and not to target someone because of personal bias." Harris opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. His shoulders slumped, and for the first time he looked defeated. Carter turned to Ronaldo. "This is your chance to set the record straight. What do you want to do?" Ronaldo took a deep breath. "I don't want to ruin anyone's career, but I also won't let this slide. If the airline wants to handle this internally, that's fine. But I expect an apology, not just to me, but to everyone on that flight." The officers nodded. "We'll make sure of it," the female officer said. As they escorted Harris out of the room, Carter turned to Ronaldo. "You handled that well. Most people would have lost their temper." Ronaldo smiled faintly. "Anger doesn't solve anything. Respect does." Carter nodded, a look of admiration in his eyes. "You're a better man than most, Ronaldo." Outside the room, the other passengers waited anxiously. When Ronaldo and Carter emerged, a small crowd gathered around them. "What happened?" one passenger asked. Ronaldo held up a hand. "It's being handled. Thank you for your support." As they walked back toward the gate, Carter glanced at Ronaldo. "You know, this isn't over. People like Harris don't just disappear." Ronaldo nodded. "I know, but as long as we stand up for what's right, they can't win." The storm had passed, but the battle for respect was far from over. The airport terminal buzzed with activity, but Cristiano Ronaldo and James Carter stood in a quiet corner. Away from the chaos, Ronaldo's phone buzzed incessantly. News of the incident had already started to spread. Reporters were calling, and social media was ablaze with speculation. Carter glanced at Ronaldo. "We're going to have to address this sooner or later," Ronaldo sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Discuss further." Man in a sharp suit approached them. He extended his hand, his expression apologetic. "Mr. Ronaldo, I'm James Thornton, the Regional Director of Flight Operations for the airline. I can't tell you how sorry I am for what happened." Ronaldo shook his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Thornton." "Nay? But this isn't just about me. It's about how your airline treats its passengers." Thornton nodded. "I understand. Captain Harris's behavior was completely unacceptable. He's been suspended pending a full investigation." Carter crossed his arms. "Suspended? That's it." Thornton held up a hand. "It's just the first step. We'll be conducting a thorough review of our policies and training to ensure this doesn't happen again. And of course, we'll be issuing a formal apology to you, Mr. Ronaldo, and to all the passengers on that flight." Ronaldo's expression softened. "I appreciate that. But I hope you understand, this isn't just about one incident. It's about respect." Thornton nodded again. "You're absolutely right, and I can assure you we'll be taking this very seriously." As Thornton walked away, Carter turned to Ronaldo. "Well, that's something. But I still think you should make a statement." Ronaldo thought for a moment, then nodded. "You're right. Let's find a quiet place." They found a small lounge area, and Ronaldo pulled out his phone. He opened his social media account and began recording a video. "Hello, everyone," he began, his voice calm but firm. "I want to address what happened on my flight today. It's true that I was treated unfairly by the captain, but this isn't just about me. It's about respect for everyone, no matter who they are or what they do. I've always believed that how you treat others says more about you than it does about them. Let's focus on kindness and understanding, not judgment and division. Thank you." He ended the recording and uploaded it. Within minutes, the video began to go viral. Carter smiled. "That was perfect. You didn't attack anyone. You just stood up for what's right." Ronaldo nodded. "Sometimes that's all you can do." As they sat in the lounge, waiting for their rescheduled flight, Ronaldo's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from his manager. "The airline wants to make it up to you," Ronaldo said, reading the message. "They're offering to upgrade me and all the passengers on that flight to first class on our next trip." Carter chuckled. "Well, that's something, but I think you've already made your point." Ronaldo smiled. "Respect isn't about upgrades or apologies. It's about how we treat each other every day." The storm had passed, but the lessons it brought would linger long after. The news of Cristiano Ronaldo's video spread like wildfire. By the time the rescheduled flight was ready to board, the story had become a global talking point. Passengers from the original flight gathered at the gate, their spirits lifted by Ronaldo's message of respect and unity. As Ronaldo and James Carter approached the gate, they were met with applause. A young woman stepped forward, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Ronaldo. What you did meant a lot to all of us." Ronaldo smiled warmly. "We all deserve to be treated with respect. I'm just glad we could stand together." The airline staff, clearly aware of the heightened attention, were on their best behavior. The new captain, a friendly woman in her 40s, greeted Ronaldo personally. "Mr. Ronaldo, it's an honor to have you on board. I can assure you this flight will be nothing like the last." Ronaldo shook her hand. "Thank you, Captain. I'm looking forward to a peaceful journey." As they boarded the plane, the atmosphere was noticeably different. Passengers chatted amiably, and the crew moved with a sense of purpose and professionalism. Ronaldo took his seat in first class, and Carter sat beside him. "You know," Carter said, "this whole thing might have been a blessing in disguise. People are talking about respect and kindness because of you." Ronaldo nodded. "Sometimes it takes a negative experience to remind us what's important." The flight took off smoothly, and this time there were no snide remarks over the intercom. Instead, the captain's voice was warm and welcoming. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. We're honored to have you with us today. Let's make this a journey to remember, for all the right reasons." The passengers cheered, and Ronaldo couldn't help but smile. It was a small victory, but it felt significant. As the flight progressed, passengers began to approach Ronaldo, sharing their own stories of facing disrespect or discrimination. One man, a teacher, talked about how his students looked up to Ronaldo not just for his skills on the field, but for his character off it. "You're a role model," the teacher said, "and today you showed us what true strength looks like." Ronaldo thanked him, humbled by the words, "I'm just doing what I believe is right." Carter leaned over. "You see, this is why people admire you. It's not just about the goals or the trophies. It's about who you are as a person." Ronaldo nodded, but his mind was already elsewhere. He knew this incident was just one small moment in a much larger conversation about respect and equality, and he was determined to keep that conversation going. As the plane soared through the skies, Ronaldo felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about him. It was about everyone who had ever been treated unfairly. And if his voice could make a difference, he was ready to use it. As the flight continued, Cristiano Ronaldo found himself reflecting on the events of the day. The support from the passengers, the airline's response, and the global reaction to his video had all left a deep impression on him. He realized that this incident wasn't just a personal challenge, it was an opportunity to make a broader impact. James Carter, sitting beside him, noticed the thoughtful expression on Ronaldo's face. "A penny for your thoughts?" he asked. Ronaldo smiled faintly. "I was just thinking about how this whole thing started. It felt like a personal attack, but it turned into something much bigger." Carter nodded. "That's how it goes sometimes. One person's actions can spark a movement." Ronaldo leaned back in his seat. "I've always tried to use my platform for good, but this feels different. It's not just about charity or inspiring kids. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable." Carter raised an eyebrow. "What are you thinking?" Ronaldo hesitated for a moment, then said, "I think I need to do more. Not just for myself, but for anyone who's ever been treated unfairly. Maybe I can use this experience to start a conversation about respect and equality." Carter grinned. "And now you're talking. You've got the world's attention. Why not use it?" As the plane descended toward its destination, Ronaldo pulled out his phone and began drafting a post. He wanted to share his thoughts while they were still fresh in his mind. When the plane landed, Ronaldo stepped off to a crowd of reporters and fans. Cameras flashed and microphones were thrust in his direction. He held up a hand, signaling that he would speak. "Thank you all for being here," he began. "What happened today was a reminder that respect is something we all deserve, no matter who we are or where we come from. But it's also a reminder that we have the power to make a difference. Let's use that power to create a world where everyone is treated with dignity." The crowd erupted into applause, and Ronaldo felt a surge of determination. This was just the beginning. As he made his way through the airport, Carter clapped him on the shoulder. "You've got a lot of people behind you, Ronaldo. Don't stop now." Ronaldo smiled. "I won't. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than me." Cristiano Ronaldo's words at the airport resonated far beyond the crowd of reporters and fans. By the time he reached his hotel, his message had already gone viral. Social media was flooded with hashtags like #RespectForAll and #StandWithRonaldo, and people from all walks of life were sharing their own stories of facing disrespect or discrimination. As Ronaldo scrolled through the messages, he felt a mix of emotions: pride, humility, and a renewed sense of responsibility. He turned to James Carter, who was sitting across the room. "This is incredible," he said. "People are really listening." Carter nodded. "You've started something important. Oh, you've started something important. But the real question is, what's next?" Ronaldo thought for a moment. "I want to keep this conversation going. Maybe I can partner with organizations that promote respect and equality, or start a campaign to raise awareness." Carter smiled. "That's a great idea. Yeah. But don't forget, you've already made a huge impact just by speaking up. Sometimes the simplest actions have the biggest ripple effects. The next morning, Ronaldo woke up to a flood of messages from fellow athletes, celebrities, and even politicians, all expressing their support. Among them was a message from the airline CEO, inviting him to collaborate on a new initiative to improve passenger treatment and staff training. Ronaldo read the message aloud to Carter. They want me to be part of their new Respect in the Skies program. What do you think? Carter leaned forward. I think it's a great opportunity, but make sure it's not just a PR stunt. Hold them accountable. Ronaldo nodded. Agreed. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. He spent the rest of the day drafting a response, outlining his expectations and ideas for the initiative. By the time he sent it, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. That evening, Ronaldo and Carter sat on the hotel balcony, overlooking the city skyline. The air was cool, and the lights twinkled like stars. You know, Carter said, this whole thing started with one man's arrogance, but it's ending with a global movement. That's pretty amazing. Ronaldo smiled. It's not ending, Carter. It's just beginning. Thank you for following this journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring tales. Let's continue to spread respect and kindness, one story at a time.